So you are awakening and you're probably feeling depression, the loss of interest, self interest, symptoms of a rebirth to what was covered by years of conditioning and beliefs. But ego debt can be mistaken for things that we felt before in the old self. For our true selves to unfold, the ego has to die. Sometimes a slow and very painful death. I say this because when we're going through it, when I went through the very first experience of it, it felt like the shadow of death. That's how I can put a name to it. Felt like the shadow of death. It may feel like you're going crazy. Everything you knew to be yourself is shutting down. You're not dying, but it feels like it. We're losing what the ego had dominance in. Awakening doesn't cover the old self, it dissolves it. While this is happening, the ego is dying. So something has to die, something has to decrease in me so something can increase. That created self, created identities we carried as ourself. The ego had control in this, and now it is dissolving. So the ego mind starts to panic. It's panicking. I didn't know this until after. For me, what was frightening about ego debt is not knowing what it was to begin with, trying to make sense of what I was going through. And it's easy for us to want to name it quickly because it's so frightening and we begin to panic. We name it depression and make it clinical words to identify what we are experiencing. But it is the ego, sometimes in it, losing that control and trying to create another identity to hide itself in. So if it can name it something clinical and hide itself in that, it will. And I get it. We have to name it to make sense of it. When what we're experiencing, what's happening is a more of a phenomena. You're being born again a second time. And that, beloved, is clinically impossible, right? This is the inner shift, unbecoming the old self. It's uncomfortable. And it still is for me. The reason why I say that is that there is some old stuff in the bottom, down there, that still needs to surface. But it's nothing for me to force. It's nothing for me to force. I just, stay present Stay empty. Ego that does not mean that the ego will try to creep back in. Yes, it's uncomfortable and it can be an extremely painful feeling, experience. And that is normally, I say normally, the time when we find ourselves alone, in isolation. I don't know, maybe you can relate to that when we're going through that inner change, that inner shift. That is normally when you find yourself in isolation because the energy that you're giving off now, other people not going through the same thing you're going through, it's not aligning. So that's when you find yourself completely alone. But the isolation, that you will soon come to know as a solitude, a space of just being, and that you're never alone. Initially, when we start to go through ego death, there's a lot of things that we don't understand. Maybe what I want to really share with you is don't give space for the ego to hide in these clinical words it uses to name what we're feeling, to make us feel safe. But in actuality, the ego is in that. And it's now formed itself into an identity. I don't want to be insensitive here to those people that are experiencing clinical depression and other emotional occurrence. I don't want to be insensitive. This is for the ones going through ego death. Don't give space and start to look for names to identify this. You may go to other people and they might suggest and they name it for you. But that's just the ego trying to gain control because it knows it's losing control. The ego is a chameleon. It takes the shape of the awakened one, the depressed one, the lonely one, the chosen one, the rejected one, the enlightened one. It's a chameleon. But if we remain as nothing, not reaching for these identity, when I'm empty, it has nothing to attach itself to. I realize the moment I start identifying strongly with anything, the ego can easily make a guest appearance. I don't come to you as being perfect, but I am on my way to perfection. For those who understand those words, isn't that what awakening is doing? We're unbecoming the old self. It's dissolving all of that. And leaving this there's no essence of a person. It's just presence. There is the form, identity. The form is still there, but presence is now dominant, not ego. It's like a lingering presence of peace and love, because the ego is not dominant anymore. When I initially felt that emptiness in the beginning, I didn't know what it was. It wasn't severe depression. It felt like it, or this permanent numbness, loss of motivation. It felt like that. That is naming the symptoms of ego death. But really, what it was presence, beingness, something that I've never truly experienced before. Because the old self, that created self, was covering it. So I didn't know what it was first. It was frightening. Like I said, when the ego is not present, there is just presence. I didn't understand. Something was burning, that ego, burning, and it was uncomfortable. Shadow, felt like the shadow of death. But just like the prayer, fear no ill, love is with you, grace is with you. Your soul, the essence of being, is expanding, and we tend not to see this while we're experiencing it. Maybe you feel like just letting go where you are right now. Maybe nothing makes sense anymore. But the best of you is ready to begin. The best of you is ready to begin. Every end has a beginning. Thank you. Thank you.